So I just got done with my Hebrew lesson, and there's a lot of things that Josephites and Judahites don't understand. They're not relational with one another. Okay, Genesis chapter 12 and verse 3, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Don't we think that it goes both ways? I have an Orthodox Jew helping me learn Hebrew, and I'm helping him by making the world a better place through doing that. If you think that it's solely constrained to the people of the land, then you have a theology that isn't very deep at all. So, this brother was trying to explain to me that as we came across the word eitz, it means wood. And I mean, when I was reading it in the textbook, and I said, yes, brother, that's the exact word that's used in Ezekiel chapter 37. Joseph, take up a piece of wood for yourself. Judah, take up a piece of wood or a stick for yourself. And we need to unite them. But you have Ephraimites who hate Judahites and Judahites who hate Ephraimites. In Yeshayahu, or Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 13, we read of a prophecy. It says, Ephraim's jealousy will vanish, okay? We envy the Judahites. They're very industrious people, okay? They have a lot of high-ranking positions in the government and also in society. And Judah's enemies will be destroyed, the surrounding nations that are trying to terrorize them. It says Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, nor Judah hostile toward Ephraim, because both are going to be victims of anti-Semitism. Both are going to fall under that category that people are going to hate. And so they need to unite. And of course, this prophecy will be fulfilled once Mashiach Nagid, that's Yeshua HaNotzari, Jesus the Nazarene, returns, and he brings in all the exiles, he reinstates righteousness, the temple is rebuilt, and we have a theocracy in the land once again. So, Judah is going to try to cut corners to Yahweh's Torah and add and take away and insert their own interpretations. And Ephraim's just going to read written Torah because they believe mainly in written Torah and just ignore it. Not do it because it doesn't matter. You know, in Judah, they do some wizardy things, don't get me wrong. There's a rabbi who owns Pornhub. Yes, you heard that right. A man who is rabbinically ordained owns the app Pornhub. Now, this is immoral according to the scriptures, but we understand why he would do this. Because the outsiders whom he is marketing to are treated as dogs. And this is why some in brother Ephraim have a hard time taking the rabbinic system seriously, because they should be shunning this dude and kicking him out of the halakhic community. Here's an article from Forward. It says, a rabbi is overseeing Pornhub. That's actually not so weird, and this is about Shlomo Friedman. I don't know how you improve ethics on a porn site. It's already a dumpster fire. So many people are trafficked to be able to film those videos. You know, the term in Hebrew, hamotzi, means to bring forth. So when we say the term hamotzi, we're referring to Yahweh Elohim enabling the ground to bring forth the ingredients that are required for bread. And this man, he wants to bring forth bread through immoral deeds and acts. And when I say bread, I mean monetary bread. Now, while there are many in the house of Judah that don't condone this act of this rabbi participating in the porn industry, the reality is Judahites need to get with the program on there being a Messiah who assumes the divine identity of Elohim. In Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 through 14, we see, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Okay, so just from Tanakh, forget church fathers. Okay, there are a lot of people who try to strawman me and say, I believe in the doctrine of the church fathers. We don't need the doctrine of the church fathers. A bunch of them are heretics who hate Tanakh. But just from the original Israelite form of worship, if we just look at the Hebrew Bible, it's very clear that there is someone else who is eternal and also receives worship as though he is Elohim. And you know why that is? He's not apart from Elohim. He is a part of that divine identity. Notice what I just said. A part, one word, versus a part, two words. There is not an everlasting figure apart from Elohim, so it must be Elohim. In Micah chapter 5 and verse 2, we read a text that anti-missionaries really hate. It says, "But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah or Yehudah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times." This is an eternal figure. So there are two passages in Tanakh that clearly demonstrate that the Messiah is an eternal figure. He's not created. Oh, you thought I needed John or Colossians to make that statement? Don't be silly. So what are they teaching at Pigisha? Okay, they have a conference annually in New York, and it's called Encounter. Why? Because they have Shabbat festivities. It's for a weekend. They have enlightening speakers, allegedly. But are we teaching them the written Torah? Are we teaching them the written Tanakh? Or are we teaching them the opinions of the rabbis? Are we teaching them a human figure Messiah? Or are we teaching them a divine Messiah that's prophesied in Tanakh? In the Messianic movement, there's a severe misunderstanding of Torah. A lot of Messianics, there was a brother actually 2 years ago who used this text to say that someone who had been mutilated at a hospital or been through transgender operations is no longer allowed to worship the Elohim of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Brother, that is a bad exegesis of this passage. It says, "No one who has been emasculated by crushing or cutting may enter the assembly of the Lord," or Yahweh. So we're referring to the Levitical temple. We're not saying that they're not allowed to take part in worship, period. So again, this verse is constrained to temple or tabernacle worship. And we see that later in Yeshayahu, Isaiah, or even in the book of Acts, especially in chapter 8, that those who are eunuchs literally may worship the Elohim of Israel. So, when I say that Ephraim and Judah will no longer envy each other, what I mean is that Levi will come back to the first 5 books. He will not do the rabbinic system nonsense. Ephraim will no longer be so feeble as to take in theology from all these different messianic teachers, potentially contradictory theology, and not know what to believe, but just be like a reed in the wind when it comes to doctrine. Also, both will submit to and worship the divine Mashiach. We also won't have sacred namers in the kingdom. We will all know the name of Yahweh Elohim and how to say it properly, even if we're saying it wrong now. And we won't have these clashing sects of black Hebrew Israelites, or those who only believe that white people are saved, or those who only believe that a certain group is saved, whatever it may be. What's interesting is that Maimonides wrote a letter about how it's a grave sin for a Jew to take another Jew to a Gentile authority. But I guess if it's Yeshua HaNotzari or Jesus the Nazarene, it's very justified in the eyes of the house of Judah. Okay, that's insane. Don't take a Jew to a Gentile authority, but let's hand over Yeshua to the Roman consulate. You might as well just include that exception in the letter. And I don't know if you realize, but Tanakh is very clear that collaborating and making alliances with the nations is strictly prohibited because you're no longer trusting Yahweh Elohim, you're using your own human means and power. You're basically, instead of relying on Yahweh Elohim as the bread of life and as the living water, deciding that the nations and political alliances are what you should rely on. Now you have all these teachers, intellectuals, and scholars coming in and creating their own religions. Okay, Gid Hanasheh is a perfect example. We read about in Parashah Vayishlach how the Israelites, how the people of Israel were not eating meat around the hip bone after Yaakov's or Jacob's encounter with Yahweh. And it's interesting because there are a lot of people in Rabbinic Judaism who don't define the line between description and prescription, right? There are a lot of things in Tanakh that are descriptive, like we shouldn't be sacrificing our children to Molech. Why? Well, they think we should do certain things just because they're mentioned. Of course, the logic of that falls apart because then we'd be turning into heathens tomorrow. So there is no prohibition against eating meat around the hip bone. That was a custom of the people of Israel, created later by the rabbis as a prohibition. And what did you do? You added to Torah. You also took away from Torah. Check in with yourself.